Okay, let's start the session now. Hello guys, good morning and
Oh,
welcome you all
it's me
in this
bucket start.
DP-600 session.
Okay.
Myself Archie this side and I'm your host for this session, guys. If you have any question and queries, please put question on
What's
chat box. We will try to help you out.
नहीं वाला काम है यार मैं था
Just a second, guys.
not the one wearing it.
Okay, then moving ahead, talking about our event sponsor, that is Synergetics. So Synergetics is an India one of kind co-porting learning solution company. Now you will get a question like who we are and what we're doing. So answering your question, we boost our offering and also give comprehensive advisory service to client who wish to modernize their framework. We educate, advise, implement, and manage. Then the Synergetic solution offering that is persona-based onboarding solution, onboarding add-on, certification solution, certification add-on, reskilling solution, emerging technology training solution, certification hackathon, cloud adoption, latest technology training solution, sales and pre-sales training solution, practice playbook, and architecting. Then what this Microsoft certification training does, it will give you complete learning experience. You will get trained, build confidence to appear for the exam and get certified. This is skilling journey. Here you can advance yourself. First, you have to complete fundamental certification. Then you can go with the advanced role-based certification, then expert level certification. In fundam in fundamental level certification, we have Azure Fundamental, Azure AI Fundamental, Azure Data Fundamental, Power Platform Fundamental, and Security Compliance and Identity Fundamental. In associate level certification, we have many types of certification. Here you can see on my screen. In expert level certification, we have AZ305, SC100, PL600, and AZ400. Also, we have special certification that is AZ120, AZ140, AZ220. If you want any certification, you can connect with us. I already shared contact details on chat box. Then certification offering. So certification will help you to increase your visibility, expand your knowledge and skills. We do provide certification add-on, onboarding and like collaboration mods and more. Then moving ahead, and today training is organized by handled by the ATC community. So our ATC community is open to all the people who are interested in our cloud technology and various emerging technology. Under ATC community, we have wait. Hmm. We have emerging technology community for all. Then Azure Tech community for Punekars, emerging technology community for Surat, Azure Tech community for Nagpurkar. Guys, you just have to install the Meetup app and you can follow our communities there. Then you have to follow the code of conduct, which will create a respectful environment for all the participants. Please note that participants are not allowed to take screenshot of the presentation and cannot do screen recording. We will try to upload this training on our official YouTube channel. Today's speaker for this training, Mr. Mansi Sane. She is a Microsoft certified trainer and currently works with Synergetics as a training consultant. Agenda for this webinar, you will get to know more about the topic and benefit of it. Also, guys, in this session, we are providing you DP-600 Learning Achievement Badge. You just have to follow the step and you will get the activated badge. Don't forget to follow us on our LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube for upcoming event updates. Thank you for my side. Now, I would like to hand over this mic speaker. She will continue ahead.
Thank you so much, Archie. A very good morning to everyone. So, welcome to the DP600 webinar. So here we will be learning about the certification uh, that is DP-600, which is a Fabrics Analytics Engineer Associate level certification. Um, yeah. So this is going to be a sort. So we can I can see that there are not many participants. So we will try and wrap the session up early. We will just talk about the important things in today's session and try and wrap it up early because it's a Saturday. So everyone has, I mean, you all might want to enjoy the weekend. So we'll just um, get going and let's see. Second half after the lunch break or probably by tea break or something, the second tea break that we will be taking, we'll try and wrap it up. Okay, so as Archie said, I am a Microsoft certified trainer and I've been working with Synergetics for the past 6 years. And my domain of training has always been in the data and AI. So I train people on Python language, IoT, um, data analytics, that is Power BI, now Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, and then Azure Databricks, Data Factory, Azure Synapse Analytics and the AI services that are there. Okay. So before we go ahead and understand, so here we will just try and understand what is Microsoft Fabric, okay, why Microsoft Fabric came into picture, and we are going to talk about some of the, I'll show you some demos related to Microsoft Fabric, like what is a lakehouse, what is a warehouse, how can you create a simple end-to-end analytical solution using the Fabric service that is there. Okay, so we will try and wrap the session. Like I said, again, we will be wrapping it up early. So just a brief introduction to Microsoft Fabric, the DP-600 certification. Let's just quickly do an overview of this session and then we will see every mod. I'll give you an overview of every module and how can you prepare for the exam, how can you get ready for the exam is what we are going to see later. So this particular service has, or this particular course is basically for people who belong to the data and AI domain. Okay, if you are a data analyst, a data scientist, or a data engineer, okay, or even a database administrator, okay, or you're working with data warehouses, you can use this particular service to do that. So it's like a unified platform where all these professionals, data professionals can work and they can um, create reports, do machine learning, train a model, deploy a model, all of that on a single platform. So this particular certification has actually three skills. It is not four skills. This is a older slide, but it has three skills now. Okay, you don't you we have the first skill, that is plan, implement, and manage a solution for data analytics. Okay, this is where we will be doing the introduction of Microsoft Fabric, understand the various governance that you can have. Okay, how can you govern the Fabric service? What are the different security standards that you can apply? We are going to see that over here. Then in the second, we are going to work with how to prepare data, because this particular service is for analytics or to do analytical work. Okay. So in analytics, we know data is very critical. What are you going to analyze is the question, right? And that is the data. If you want to analyze your sales data, sales is how much sales have you generated or have done on a monthly basis. You need, or what you collect is basically data. Data is nothing but information or a fact, right? So it's the same. So if you have to analyze it, you need to prepare it, you need to clean it, you need to transform it, because the data that you get is not going to be perfect. It's going to be raw in nature, right? So You need to prepare it and you need to serve it so that it serves some purpose. Like you want to do analysis of your sales or marketing trends you want to understand, we will need data for it, correct? So that is what we are going to see in the second skill. So here I will show some demos to you all. It's very easy to very, because the interface is so easy now that you can easily prepare data, serve data. Okay, and lastly we have implement and manage. So if you can't see the presentation, just switch the view, switch to the presentation view. You will be able to see the presentation. Just change your view once. Okay, in the Teams chat you will have to yeah. So the last skill, that is implement and manage semantic models. Okay, you can um, over here we will see how to manage semantic models, how to work with semantic models. What are semantic models? Okay, so again I will give you an overview of this particular model, and this is the skill where you will be tested on the Power BI part of Microsoft Fabric. Okay, so here you will learn how to scale a semantic model, how to manage security on a semantic model, etc. is what we are going to see over here. Okay, and then of course talk about the deployment pipeline. If you want to automate processes in your using the Fabric service, you can do that also over here. So that's what the last skill talks about. Now, when you start with working with Fabric, okay, so yeah, that is fine. But this particular course is a 4-day course. Okay, it's a 4-day training normally. So this is like a webinar. So we are just going to talk about what you will, some some fundamental things only we will be talking about. But if you want to know more in depth, okay, because this is like an overview session, we will not be going in much depth. Okay, so here it's a 4-day training. Okay, we learn about the so guys, if you can't see my presentation, I would request you to switch the view to the presentation view. Okay, there is an option to do that. You will have to switch to that view in the Teams. Okay, just ensure that you do that. Otherwise, Archie, can you just confirm if my screen is visible? Anyone, like others, if it is visible?
Yes.
Okay, so you just have to switch to the presentation view. Just do that once. Okay. Now, this is a 4-day training, and in the 4 days, the skills have been divided. So, the first 2 days, basically, we focus on a component that is data engineering. We will be looking at, in which we will be learning a item called as the lakehouse is what we will be seeing. And then one day we will be fully focusing on the warehouse part in Microsoft Fabric. And then day 4, we're going to be dealing with the third skill that we talked about, that is semantic models and Power BI. Okay, so this is the way the data, I mean, the training is divided. So if you want to study or know more about this particular course, you can go to learn.microsoft.com. And towards the end of the session also, I will be showing you all where you can go and study about this particular certification in depth, because here we are not going to be doing it in depth. Like I said, we will be uh, yeah, so here we will be just doing an overview of the session. Okay. I don't know where the presentation view is, guys. You will have to just check for, I mean, you'll have to just see once, like just Google it quickly. You will come to know where the presentation view is. Yeah. So this, if you want to know more or study about this particular certification, okay, just rejoin the session then. Just log out of the session and rejoin it. Probably you will be able to see the presentation. So just do that once. Yeah, so just do a reload, guys. It's just we are in the live we are in a live meeting right now. So you'll have to load to the live view. So you will have to do that. I think it's a live view or something. I don't know. Just you will have to just do the R&D over here. Yeah. So if you want to study about the DP-600 curriculum, I mean the material that is there, you will go to the you can go to the Learn profile of Microsoft and you can study. I will be sharing the link towards the end of the webinar where you can go and study this particular about this particular course. Then apart from that, we will be giving you, like Archie said, we will be providing a complimentary course achievement badge URL. So this particular URL, I mean, this particular badge is like a participation certificate for this particular webinar that we are providing. And you can share this badge on your LinkedIn, Twitter, sorry, X or Facebook profiles with your, I mean, you can put it on any social media platform that you want. So more on this, Archie will be putting it in the chat when the time comes. But do not miss out on redeeming this, guys. It is something that does carry a lot of value, and we are giving it to you because we are, since, like Archie said, we are Microsoft partners. So it is coming from a validated source. So please do not forget to redeem it. Then once you have uh, prepared yourself on the sort, I mean, you have gone through the learned material, you have studied the learned material, you can definitely go and give the DP-600 exam. Okay, you can prepare for it and you can, so more on the certification also, I will be talking about towards the end of the session. So now let's go ahead and understand the first skill. Let's understand why Microsoft Fabric, from where did Microsoft Fabric come into picture. Let's understand a scenario, okay, before Microsoft Fabric was introduced last year by Microsoft. Okay, why this service came in. Let's just understand that. So, like, it's not that before Microsoft. Just a second. I want to open an image also. Let me do that. So now let's understand a scenario before Microsoft Fabric was launched last year. Why was the need of such a service to be introduced by Microsoft? Okay. Nowadays, we know that data is something that is very important, right? Any enterprise, any organization that is there, they are, they all work with, I mean, data is very critical for them, correct? So if I have to analyze the data, okay, there are various tools on the Azure cloud platform. So here we are going to stick to the cloud platform. Okay, only we'll just talk about. We will stick to the example of the Azure cloud platform only. So when we have to do now data, like I told you, has to be analyzed. Okay, whether it's sales data, marketing data, any data. Okay, you can't just keep the data lying. You need to analyze it so that you can improve your sales, improve your marketing strategies, and that you can only do it when you have the data, right? So now when I have to, like, when we I mean, data is something that is not coming from one source, right? Data comes, or the type of the data that we have. Do you know what are the different types of data that is there? Can you let me know in the chat very quickly what is the three different types of data? Yes, guys, three different types of data. Do you all know? Please put it in the chat quickly. Yes, absolutely right. Structured, semi-structured, unstructured data. Correct. So when we extract data or when we work with data, the type of the data is different. It could be structured, it could be semi-structured, it could be unstructured, correct? And the format in which we get these types of data, okay, the format. So there are two formats, correct, of data. That is the table format, and second is the file format, correct? We get two types of formats in which these structured, semi-structured, unstructured data is stored. So structured data, if I have to talk about, we generally have data that is stored in a database, which is in the form of a table, correct? That is stored in, that is the structured table. Now, what is, sorry, a structured data? What is a structured data? Something that has a schema, something that has a structure, right? We know about it. Like if I have to talk about a table and it's a structured table, we know that what is the data type of the columns or the attributes that are there. Or if we talk about files, so a CSV file, there is a structure to that, right? After every value, there will be a comma. After every two values, there will be a comma. So it's comma separated value. It is following a structure. So we know that. Okay, so that is what is called as a structured data, something that has a schema, correct? Now, what is a semi-structured data? Semi-structured, we know it is something that has flexible schema, right? Generally, the metadata of a data is generally stored in this format, or sorry, in this structure. Sorry, in this type, actually, I shouldn't use the word structure. Okay. So your JSON files, XML, okay, these are some of the examples in which something that has a key value pair, right, is your semi-structured data. And then lastly, you have unstructured, no structure at all, like your blobs, you have binary large objects, which is also called as blobs, which is nothing but your audio, video, images, files that we have, right? Those are nothing but unstructured. We don't know their structure at all, correct? So that is what is the unstructured. And they can be stored again in any format. It could be a tabular format, it could be a file format. It doesn't matter, right? So when we are working with an analytical solution, the data that we are ingesting. So here we know there are two types of pipelines, data pipelines that we create. Right? We have two types of data pipelines. One is called as ETL and second is called as ELT. Yes, guys, do you all know what is ETL, ELT? Let me know in the chat very quickly what is their full form. What is what is ETL? What is ELT? Can you all let me know quickly in the chat? Yes, absolutely right. So ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. Correct. It stands for extract, transform, and load. And ELT stands for extract, load, and transform. Okay. So when we are working with data, okay, I told you data is of different types. Okay, data, and this data that we have, okay, whether it's a structured data, semi-structured data, it can be stored in different storages, right? Data can be stored in different storages. We have the database, we have the data warehouse, we have data lake, correct? We have the data lake, so many storages where the data can be stored. So if it's a table and it is structured, we know it is stored in a database. If it is again structured and tabular, again it's a data warehouse. If it's a file, we know that files are generally stored in a data lake. Okay, the format in which they are stored. So these are some of the storages that are there. So data, if I have to now extract for analytical purposes, okay, it could be of any type, it could be stored anywhere, correct? It could come from anywhere. So this is how it will look like. You will have various types of data, and to store that data you will have to put them into respective storages. If it's a structured data and tabular format, you will go for the database. If it's a relational data, if it's an analytical workload, okay, you will go for the data warehouse. If it is what do we say, unstructured data, so on Azure. So like I told you, here we will be sticking to the Azure platform. Okay, it will be all coming from various storages, correct? And we need to first of all extract that data. Okay, so we need to extract, so that is the E part. We need to ingest the data, correct? So it could come from various services. Okay, and on Azure, we know those services. We have the Azure. Yes, not in database. Data lake stores multiple types of files, not tables. It's not a structured this thing. So it's like you can just pick up the raw data and you can just dump, but it has to be in a file format. You're absolutely right on that. Okay. So when we talk about Azure services, okay, Azure data services, let's just see that. So before what we are doing here, guys, is that we are talking about the scenario before Microsoft Fabric came in, because if we understand the scenario, we will understand how to make use of that service. Okay. So here we have different storage services. So you have the Azure Blob Storage. You have the Azure Blob Storage. You have Azure SQL database. You have Azure Synapse Analytics, which is nothing but used for data warehousing. Okay, so that is why I'm specifying this name. Then you have Azure Cosmos DB, which is like a multi-model uh, database, okay, where you can store your semi-structured and unstructured data, like NoSQL databases, okay, like Graph and Cassandra, sorry, Gremlin, Cassandra, MongoDB, okay, if you want those databases to be for you all, you can use that. Then you have another storage on Azure, that is the Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account. Right? So these are some of the services on the Azure cloud platform that you would use. Let's say you're building an analytical solution. Okay. Let's say you want to do some predictive analytics, or you want to do some descriptive diagnostic analysis. That is okay. I mean, it could be any of the analytics, but you need to store the data, extract the data from somewhere. Okay. So these could be, let's say, on only on cloud platform. You know, like I said, we are only going to stick to one cloud platform, and that is Azure. Okay. So what happens now is that if I have to extract data from this particular storages, we need to perform ETL or ELT. And to do that also, to ingest the data or to extract the data and perform ETL or ELT, we need some other services, right? We need other services like you have the Azure Data Factory. You have Azure Synapse Analytics, the pipeline feature, okay, of the Synapse Analytics. Analytics. Then you can use Azure Databricks. You can also use Azure Databricks to do it. So these are the services that you might need to use. So let's say you have data coming in from different uh, sources, correct? And the source or the type of the data from where you are ingesting, I mean, the source of the data can be different types of data. That is, it could be structured, unstructured, semi-structured, or it could be coming in real time, right? You have your IoT devices, so or the sensors from where you collect the data. So if I have to ingest data from real-time devices, I would need some other service to do that. That is your Azure IoT Hub, then Azure, or you can also call it as Event Hubs. Okay. These are the services that you might need to use in order to ingest or extract the data from real-time devices. Correct? These are the services. Now, if you have extracted the data, either you transform it or you load it, correct? Using these two pipelines. So if I have to do that, again, I will need some other service to do it. We might again need a Synapse analytics. We might need Databricks, okay, where it has the notebook interface. It has the notebook interface, okay, similar to your Jupyter notebook, okay, where you can transform the data and then load the data, or load the data and then on top of it transform it. Okay, so if you have to use tools to do that, you need another. Yeah, they are same. Okay, Databricks and Azure Databricks are the same. It's just that if you have to work with Databricks, okay, Databricks is basically a different organization. So if you have to use Databricks as Databricks, you will have to create an account on their portal. That is the Databricks. You will have to go and you will have to create a separate account. But since Databricks and Azure or Microsoft, they are in, I mean, they are working in collaboration. Okay, so if you have an Azure Active Directory, or we now call it as Microsoft Entra ID, so you don't have to explicitly or separately create a Databricks account. Okay, because Databricks has been integrated into the Azure cloud platform. So using your own Microsoft Entra ID, you can use the Databricks. So they are different. It's just that the interface is absolutely the same. It's just that in if you're working with Azure you get more security. You get the level of Azure security, whereas in Databricks we don't know what kind of security is used. Okay, but Azure takes care of the security part because it is you're deploying it on the Azure cloud and etc. So security standards in context to um, in context to Databricks will be much better on the Azure Databricks. And like I said, if you already have an Azure account, you don't have to create a separate account on the Databricks because they have been integrated together. So that is one good thing that you can do. So though they are I mean, they look the same, interface is the same. It's just the naming, I mean, the way you use it is a little different. Okay, so that is what is so now what happens over here? If you have to process the data, clean the data, load the data, you again need these tools to do it, right? So if you look at the diagram, we have ingested the data using pipelines, using data factory also you can use. Okay. Okay. If it's real-time data coming from IoT devices, sensors, or real-time, I mean social media platform or something like that, you need some other tools to extract the data. Okay, and you need some other tools to analyze it, like Databricks or Synapse, or you have for real time, you have Azure Stream Analytics. Okay, you have Azure Stream Analytics. Yeah, so if you see here, guys, I'm just coming in 2 minutes. I just want some hot water. Yeah, I'll just come in 2 minutes. Yeah. So over here, if you see, we have various services that we can use, okay, in order to extract, in order to transform, and then in order to load. Okay. Now, let's say you want to train a model, okay, or deploy a model, ML model, AI model, okay, and or you want to, let's say, create reports or dashboards for data analysis. So here you need a different tool. Okay. To do that, you have Azure Machine Learning Studio, you have Power BI. Okay. To do that, so again, different services you will be using. So you have Azure Machine Learning Studio, you have Power BI. Okay. In order to do predictive analytics, you will use the Azure Machine Learning Studio, or if you want to do Power BI, I mean, for data, for diagnostic, descriptive analytics, you can use the Power BI service. So here, if you see that all these services that are there, okay, if I have to use them, though they are on the same cloud platform, they bring a lot of challenges to create an end-to-end solution because these services, okay, are because these services are platform as a service. Guys, do you all know what is platform as a service or PaaS? Okay, because these services are platform as a service. Do you all know what is the meaning of platform as a service? Yes, no, guys, very quickly in the chat, please. Okay, so to put it simply, platform as a service, meaning you have to create the service. Okay, well, like if you, we all use Word, Excel, um, PowerPoint, right? Those are applications that you don't create. It's something that you get. How do you get it? The moment you get a license, you get those applications with you, right? You have to just purchase the license and you can use the Office 365 uh, this thing. But platform as a service, what you have to do is you'll be given the platform to use the application, but you need to configure the application. Okay. Whereas Word, Excel, like I said, you just need the license and you can start using the application. But if you want to use blob storage, you want to use data breaks, you want to use any of these services, you need to initially configure these services. Okay, basically deploy these services. Which region you want to deploy this service? What like in terms of the blob storage or data lake Gen 2, what kind of redundancy you want? Here you don't get the infrastructure. Infrastructure and all is everything is managed by your cloud service provider. What you decide here is which subscription do you want to use? What resource group you want to put it to? Okay, what kind of security you want to apply? Who should get what access? Okay, create compute create compute because you will require physical resources to use these services, right? Compute meaning physical resources, that is input, output, your cores, V cores, like how in a machine we have CPUs, right? Here you will need cores, you will need memory to execute something on these services, right? If you have to ingest data using data factory, it will require compute. It has to use some physical resources, like you're also on your local system, on your laptops. When you are doing something, ultimately your engine is being utilized, right? So when we are talking about platform as a service, these are the things you basically you need to get the platform ready to use these services. Okay, you need to basically, so I will explain it to the ones who don't know it very quickly. I have a diagram for it. So let me just search for that. Okay, so I'm just, give me a minute. I'll just look for the diagram to explain it to you. So this is how a platform as a service. Okay, so normally let's say if I want to make pizza, right? Let's talk about in context to the pizza. Okay, so normally if we are ordering a pizza from outside, okay, so what do? We don't have to make the pizza, we don't have to use our own gas or make the pizza dough or the toppings or etc. We don't have to use any of this, correct? We don't have to take that effort to make that pizza. What do? You all just call the pizza home, right? Everything is being done where probably at from wherever you order the pizza, they might be using their own resources to do it. The oven or the pizza dough, the ingredients that are going to be required, the toppings that you require, cheese, etc., or the sauce that is going to be required to be put on the pizza. All of that is done or taken care by the company. All what you do is you just order it, you just decide what you want, which pizza you want, and then along with that, where do you want to eat the pizza at your house? Okay, whether it's in the living room, dining room, wherever, and you decide what beverage goes with that. So that is what is called platform as a service, where you don't configure anything. Okay, you don't configure anything. You are just using the platform and just giving your own application. What are your requirements in terms of compute, in terms of the region, in terms of if it's a blob storage, in that context, what redundancy you want is all decided by you. So that is what is called as platform as a service. Okay, whereas I just gave you all the example of M365, right? M365 is like you go out to eat the pizza. You go to a proper restaurant and you eat the pizza. You don't do anything. You don't have to manage the dining table or the beverages. Nothing you have to manage. You don't have to get anything. Everything will be available at the restaurant, right? So it's the same thing as your M365. Okay, the popular service that we use, that is Microsoft 365, where you get all the applications created, that is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, all they're already created. Applications are created. You are not configuring anything, correct? You're not creating Word or a platform for Word to work. You just are using that application and putting in your own data, your own text, correct? So that is what is called as a software as a solution. Okay, it is termed as SaaS. Why am I talking about this? You will come to know. Okay, why am I doing a difference between platform as a service and software as a service? Okay, so the challenge over here when we talk about platform as a service is that you need to configure, here you need to configure a lot of things. So now we're going to talk about the challenges one faces. Okay, let's say you have to create an end-to-end analytical solution using these services. So what is the challenge that you will face when you are working with these services? So the very first challenge is that they are platform as a service. That means you will have to independently configure them first. Okay, you will have to do the configuration. Now, configuration meaning, so I'll just write the challenges over here. I'll do one thing also. I'll open my portal account so that I can show you what I mean. Yeah. So if you see here, if I talk about Azure Databricks and I have to create, so this is a platform as a service. All what you have to do is if I click on create, so here you have to basically decide the subscription that you want, what resource group it has to be put into. So resource group is like a container for all your Azure resources that you create. Okay, and now what you need to give to this service is a workspace name. You need to give a name to this service. Okay. And not just that, if you are using multiple such services, like if it's the Azure Data Factory, I'll just say data factories. And if I say create, so again, the same things you have to configure, give it a new workspace name. Okay. So let's say you have to use multiple such services in your analytical solution. Okay. Think of it in this manner. You have to use so many services in order to just, perform and to perform analytics. So for security also, you will have to use different services for ingesting the data, for transforming the data, for cleaning the data. So what happens is that at times a very first challenge that one can face is of integrating these many services together. Integration of these services takes time. You understood? Now, if I have to use a Databricks service, I have to use a Data Factory service, I have to use an Azure ML Studio. I have to integrate them, put them together in an end-to-end analytical solution so that I can do analysis. Okay, what any kind of analysis it could be. So your integration is a challenge. It takes time to integrate multiple search services, even though they are on the same cloud platform, right? So what happens? I will create a Databricks service. I just switch the directory. So in my other subscription, I have. So here, if you see, I have a Data Factory service created. So I'll just say launch. I also have a Databricks service. I have, you can see multiple storages created. So what happens over here? So if I have to integrate them, I need to first of all give them different works names. Okay, and that is called as a workspace. So what happens is that uh, for Databricks, if you see, I have a different service name. This is the name of my Databricks account. Then for Data Factory, this is my Data Factory name. Likewise, you can have your, what do we say, storages created, right? You have your storage accounts created. So you will have lots of other again, those names you will have to remember. So what happens over here for every service that you are integrating in your analytical solution, you will have a different workspace that gets created. Okay. And to that workspace, you will have different names. So on Azure, there is a drawback that you can't have the same name for any service that you create, whether it's a Databricks service or it's a Data Factory service. It doesn't matter. Okay. You can have different names there, but yeah, you will have to give because it doesn't allow the same name. Some conflict issues occur and etc. So here you will have to give different workspace names. Okay. Then after you have configured and created the service, in order to use the service, okay, if you want to create use pipelines, you want to work with notebooks in the Databricks service, you want to work with the Synapse Analytics, you want to work with Machine Learning Studio. Like I said, you need something called as compute, which is nothing but the physical resources. that are there, right? You need the physical resources. So now, once you have configured, you have created the service, you have given it a workspace name, etc. For every service in your in your analytics that you are using, you will have to create a separate compute. Okay, you will have to create a separate compute. So Databricks will require a different compute, Data Factory will require a different compute, Azure Machine Learning Studio will require a different compute. Because why is that? The workloads that you are putting in, like when you work with Databricks, you're only working with notebooks. Or when you're working with Data Factory, okay, you're just working with pipelines or with data flows. Okay, these are the pipelines, these are the data flows that you are working with. Okay, if you go to Databricks, you're working with only notebooks. The interface that is used is the notebooks. So if you see, this is the notebook. This is how it looks like. Okay, so if you see, this is the interface. So what happens over here? If you have to use, let's say, a notebook or you have to use pipelines, you will have different interfaces that will be created. And for those workloads also, okay, or a workload, a notebook workload or a pipeline workload, you require different compute. Okay, you require different compute. So what happens here is that you, first of all, integration becomes a challenge, then giving different names to them becomes a challenge, right? You need to give them different names, different workspaces where only those specific workloads can be put in. Okay, so if you work with Databricks, only notebooks can be put into that workspace. Data Factory, only pipelines. Synapse, you can do both. You can use notebooks, you can create pipelines, etc. Okay, but in order to work with that, depending upon the workload, you need to create a compute. Okay, in Synapse, you have three types of compute that you need to at times create. So if you want to work with notebooks, in Synapse Analytics, you need to create a Apache Spark pool. Okay, even in Databricks, if you see, if you come to the compute section, so this particular compute will help you to manage the big data analysis, the notebooks you can use. But if you want to do data warehousing over here, okay, in the Databricks interface, you will have to create a different compute which will manage only the SQL or the data warehousing workload. Okay, so depending upon the workload, you need to create different services or different computes for every within every service. Okay, so that takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of okay, that takes again integration. That is what I mean by integration. So it is going to take time to do it, correct? And you need to configure different compute. Now, since you have to configure the services, the application independently, whether it's Databricks, Data Factory, Synapse, or the blob storages. So what happens is that even security, identity, and access, you need to separately configure them. Okay, you need to separately configure them. So that becomes a challenge again because there is no common ground, right? For every service, if you go, you will have to manage the security. So if you go to the Databricks service here, you need to manage the identity specifically for this service. Any security settings you want to apply, any encryption you want to apply, any VPN, you will have to do that only, first of all, for Databricks, then likewise for Data Factory, likewise for blob storages or any storage that you have, or Azure SQL databases, etc. You will have to, again, because they are platform as a service, they are independently working, you will have to do that. There's no common ground, there's no common area where you can, you know, you put it on one and it is applied on all the services below it. Okay, so that is a challenge over here. Okay, that is a challenge. The next challenge that is there is the data governance. Okay, data governance is a big challenge. Okay, why? Because in which, so if you saw here, when we configured or we were trying to create a data factory or a Databricks service, there was one option of region, right? So here, what is happening here, you're getting an opportunity to add in the region. Okay, so what happens at times because of some or let's say you are not following the regulations or the policy that has been applied. Okay, let's say you have been told not to create, okay, any application in, let's say, the China region. Okay, there is some conflict that is going on. So let's say in China region, or in the war that is currently going on between Ukraine and Russia. So the Ukraine data centers, you can't deploy anything now over there. So you need to apply a policy, okay, on top of, you need to create a policy so that you can stop people from creating services in that region or resources in that region. So what happens over here, since you don't have anything at a common location, at a single location, there's no unification between your applications, because here you are independently configuring them, right? You are separately managing them also, your the workloads that are there. So what happens over here? If you have to apply any Azure policy, you need to, in again, you will have to do that on every service that you are using in your end-to-end analytical solution. Okay, in your analysis, whatever services you are using, on every service, again, you will have to apply that policy so that, okay, we have been told, okay, not to create it in the China region. You need to enforce that. So if I have to enforce it, we need to apply the policy. So again, because they are platform as a service, so everything revolves around it being platform as a service. Okay. So since everything is a platform as a service, you need to independently configured. So even the data governance needs to be independently configured. And the last and the final challenge that one can see is the cost. Because, like I told you, the cost is going to depend solely on the region. Okay, it is going to depend upon the region. It is going to depend upon the service or the resource that you create, and then the compute that you create inside that resource or that service. So what happens here on Azure, okay, if you're working with data breaks, data factory, Synapse, not all the compute that is there or the region where you deploy these services have a single cost. It depends upon the region, it depends upon which resource you are creating. And then within that, what compute are you using? Because in compute also, you have CPU cores and you have GPUs. Okay. So that also is a different costing that costs you differently. So here, you don't, there's no common ground even for the cost. So let's say we have a limited subscription, like we know everything in Azure works on a subscription. Like what is a subscription? It is nothing but a billing boundary, right? Beyond that billing boundary, you can't use it. Okay. And on Azure, we know it is pay as you go model, correct? The moment you create that service, deploy that service, it is automatically going to deduct from that subscription. It is going to immediately, yeah, deduct from it. So over here, for every service that is there, there is a different cost incurred. There's no common ground. It all depends upon these factors. So what happens over here? It is a challenge. How do I manage the cost? And if you require data breaks, Synapse, Azure machine learning, etc., if the size of your data is large and you require a large compute, so it will become a challenge in that scenario, right? So that is what is, these are the challenges that Microsoft identified. They said, okay, here, people are spending a lot of time in integration of the service. The main challenge that people are finding in deploying analytical solutions is integration. People are finding it time consuming because, like I told you, they're all platform as a service. You need to independently or separately configure them, correct? So here, in order to do that, it takes time, right? It takes time. It will take all your energy, and we Microsoft doesn't want their employees or their customers to go through this pain. Okay, so that is why they came up with a solution called as Microsoft Fabric. Now, what is Microsoft Fabric? Microsoft Fabric is nothing but the Azure is the SaaSified. Okay, it's SaaSified Azure data services. Okay, and it has used the concept of M365. So how in M365, I told you, it is nothing but license based, right? And you get Word, Excel, PowerPoint ready-made, right? You just have to take what? You just need the license, right? You need the license and the minimum requirement in context to Microsoft Fabric, I'm going to tell you all, is that you need a E5 license. Okay, this is the minimum requirement. You need a E5 license. Okay, so what happens over here is that you need a E5 license. That means you need to be a part of an enterprise. Okay, you have to work with an enterprise in order to, meaning you need a domain name with your enterprise name specified. So like I work with Synergetics, so I have a Synergetics domain name. So I will be using that in order to work with Microsoft Fabric. And now, why SaaSified data services? So I told you, you have like Word, Excel. It's something that you haven't created or you don't create. It's ready made and it is given to you, right? What you need, you just need the M365 license and you can start using the Office 365 applications, right? Word documents, create PPTs, okay, use Excel for calculations and etc. Correct? So over here, now if I have a license, a Microsoft Fabric license and a E5 license, okay, you can use the Azure data services. Now, what are the Azure data services here? So these services that I just listed down have been SaaSified. Okay, they have been SaaSified, meaning like how similar to your M365. So here you will get notebooks, you will get the data bricks, that is the notebooks, you will get pipelines, you will get the storage, okay, all SaaSified as SaaS tools, okay, so that you don't spend time in doing any of this. And now what happens because of this, you get a unified platform. So Microsoft Fabric is also called as a unified platform to perform your data analysis. So you want to use, okay, you want to ingest data, you can get data from various sources, use the pipeline within the same workspace, manage all the workloads. Okay, whether it's a notebook, it's a pipeline, it's a dashboard or a report that you want to create, you want to train a machine learning model, do it on one workspace. So that is why it is called as a unified platform also for your data analysis. So you want to create a report, you want to do some ETL, ELT processes, train a model, deploy a model, you can do that in a single platform. And that single platform, so no matter what the workload is, okay, you don't have to create any compute also. You don't have to create any compute. So depending upon what workload you deploy, okay, you will get a compute ready-made. So you're like how you have, again, I'm repeating your M365 or Office 365 application. You don't have to manage or create a compute for them. It is automatically created. So it's the same thing over here. Okay, so let's do one thing now. We still have a lot to discuss. Let's take a 20-minute break. Okay. And after the break, we will have some more theoretical concepts. And then I'll show some demos. And then we will be ending. No, nothing. That is what we are going to see. Okay. What is those redundancy regions, etc.? What is that configuration? Who does that? We are going to see. We'll see it after the break. So this is just the introduction to Microsoft Fabric. Now we are going to go ahead and understand the architecture, okay, of Microsoft Fabric, and we are going to also see how that can be done, how it has unified all these existing data services. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a 20-minute break, and after that we will. So that is a different concept that you are talking about. Okay, making your solutions accessible across the globe is a different thing. If you're creating the service, okay, then also because somewhere on the cloud you need to deploy the service, right? We call it as data centers. You need to deploy it on the data center somewhere, right? Even when you're working with IaaS, you're working with platform as a service or with software as a service, you still need a region, a cloud where you can deploy. Making it accessible for people around the globe, that is a different question. That doesn't come over here. I'm talking about in context of using the cloud resources, the physical infrastructure, because all you need is a good internet connectivity and etc. Okay, so that is a different thing. That is what is we call as high availability. That is a different concept. Okay, but here we are just specifying the region where you are creating the service. Okay, high availability is a different concept. Okay, that we can, that there are various ways in which you can, real ones in fabric you don't need high availability and all, so that is another advantage, that is there. So yeah, so let's take a 20-minute break, and post the break we are going to understand the fabric architecture, and we will be doing some demos. So if you want, so sorry guys, the presentation we will not be sharing. So Archie has shared some our YouTube link channel. So you will have to subscribe to our YouTube link channel, and you will get this recording over there. Okay, so you will have to subscribe to that channel, and you will get the recordings, or this particular webinar that we are conducting. You will get it over there. We will upload it on our YouTube channel. So please do subscribe to it, and you will be able to access this recording. So let's take a break. I'll start a clock of 20 minutes. Okay. Hello, everyone. So let's continue with the session. I hope everyone is back. Please put a yes if you all are back. Okay, so let's continue. And like I said, okay, so now I told you that when we have to use Microsoft Fabric, okay, here you need to basically uh, understand the architecture, okay? Because like when you join an enterprise, okay, I told you the minimum requirement of using Fabric is the E5 license, right? You have the E5 license, so that means you have to be you have to be a part of an enterprise, without which you will not be able to use Microsoft Fabric. And the second thing that you require is that you need to get a permission from a admin. Okay, so like how when we join the enterprise, we get a domain name, we get a official ID, correct? So the same thing here it will happen. The moment you join an enterprise, it doesn't mean that okay, you get the access to work with Fabric. Okay, you have an E5 license, that is okay, but you also need an additional permission from your admin. And that admin in context to Fabric is called as the Fabric admin. Okay, it is called as the Fabric admin. So the Fabric admin is the one or is responsible to assign users to the Microsoft Fabric subscription. Okay, it is the job of the Fabric admin to assign users, okay, who among the enterprise or your organization can use the can use the Microsoft Fabric subscription. So first of all, you have to be a part of an enterprise. Second thing that you need is the Fabric license or the Fabric subscription, okay, in order to use the Fabric or create with or work with the Fabric content, okay. This is what you will need. The second responsibility that the Fabric admin has, okay, apart from this, is to assign RABC, that is role-based access control, whether to just a second, guys. Yeah, sorry. So the second responsibility of the Fabric admin is first I told you to assign users and to assign a role to the users. Okay, what kind of a level of access does the admin want? That okay, a person within the organization should get in order to use the Fabric subscription is all decided by the admin. So you are a part of an enterprise. It doesn't, and you have E5 license. It still doesn't mean that you can use the Fabric content. You can work with Fabric content. Sorry. Okay. Uh, Okay, so that is a main catch over here, that you need a permission from the Fabric admin. Now, the Fabric admin can also the Fabric admin can architect. So the way the Fabric subscription or the Fabric license that the enterprise purchases, okay, can architect it in two ways. Okay, let's just understand very quickly, because with this we are going to understand certain terms and terminology related to Fabric. So the Fabric admin can architect the Fabric subscription, or it can decide how the subscription is going to be used. You can either use architecture A, which I'll just draw, okay, or can use architecture B. Okay, so in architecture A, so let's say this is your Fabric subscription. Okay, let's say this is your Fabric subscription. Now the admin, okay, can decide how should the users be assigned, or we also call it as tenants that need to be created to a subscription. So like in Azure, we have the Azure Active Directory, or we used to call it now we call it the Entra ID, right? So we have an Azure subscription, and to that subscription, we are a tenant, right? Like we have, let's say, two houses. In one house we are staying, and we have the second house. So we don't stay over there, let's say. So you want to, give it on rent. So for that, you will give it to a tenant, and that tenant will be making use of your um house, of their resources. Your resources will be staying there, right? So that is the same thing, is nothing but a tenant. So a tenant is nothing but an instance of an subscription. So now if the admin has to create tenants over here, that is the users to this subscription, she can do it in two ways. Either he can do it for the entire, or she can do it for the entire organization. That means it becomes an organization tenant. So anyone having the domain name, so it could be like probably we can call it as username @adventureworks.com. So what is this? This is nothing but a domain name, right? It is a company name. It's a domain name. So if anyone has this and the admin has given you, right? So that becomes like an organizational tenant. Okay, it becomes like an organizational tenant. Okay, so Archie, probably we are from the same organization. We have the same organization, or the domain name is same for us. Like here you have, let's say, Adventure Works. Okay, so we both, if the admin has given us the permission to use the Fabric subscription, then this is how it will be. So we don't have a change in the domain name. Our domain names are not different. Or the other way the admin can do is that within the enterprise, we have multiple departments, right? So let's say the admin decides that I want to create tenants for the subscription based on the department. So it could be, let's say, sales department. So it could be a sales tenant, or it could be a marketing tenant, or it could be, let's say, a finance tenant. So depending upon the tenant, I mean, depending upon the departments, you can create tenants. So let's say it could be like in our adventureworksfinance.com. So that will be like a domain name that will be assigned, and based on that, a tenant will be created. Okay. So that is the other way in which just a second. I'm sorry, guys. Just verifying a few things. Yeah. So here it could be in an organizational tenant, or it could be department-wise tenant. So the very first term that we understood is the subscription. We know what it is. It's the way in which we can use the Fabric portal, or the Fabric. We can make use of Fabric. Okay. So I'll mention the Fabric terminology. So the first is tenant. Tenant is nothing but an instance of the subscription. Basically, you've been given the permission to use Fabric, and if that has to be done, it can be done in two ways. It could be either for the entire organization, or it could be department wise. Okay. The second term now comes into picture is called as the capacity. Now, what is a capacity? So if you recall, I told you compute is something that is important, right? Without compute, you will not be able to um, create anything, give input, or you can't create notebooks, can't create reports. You will not be able to create anything, right? So if I want to create if I want to create, let's say, a notebook, or I want to create a report, okay, you need physical resources to do it, right? You need a compute. So that compute comes from the capacity. So capacity is nothing but the physical resources or the compute that is provided in the Microsoft Fabric portal. I mean, when you have to work with it. So basically, capacity is something that is license based. Okay. So depending upon the license that you have, like I told you, you need a Fabric license. Okay. So these licenses are different from the M365 license. M365 is just to show that, okay, you are a part of an organization, you have a domain name, etc. But if you have to work with the Fabric content, you have to start working with Fabric, you need a capacity that is specific to Fabric, so that you get the physical resources and you can create reports or whatever work. I mean, the workload that you want to deploy, you can automatically start creating it. But like I said, the capacity is based on the license. So it is a license based. So Microsoft Fabric has three licenses. The first license is called as Microsoft Fabric 3. Okay. The second license is called as, just 1 second, guys. Just, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So here the second license that is there is called as the reserved capacity, not instance, reserve capacity. And the third license that we have is the pay as you go license. So similar to your as your subscription, like I said, the moment you have a subscription, you have a billing boundary. From that, let's say you create a resource, so immediately the money is deducted from that subscription. So that is what we call as a pay-as-you-go model, correct? So same if you want, I mean, there is a license revolve. I mean, it's the same license as that. Okay. Just now, whenever you purchase a license, a fabric license, along with that fabric license, you get a SKU. Okay, you get something called as a stock keeping unit. Actually, the license, okay, is determined. Again, this is the job of the fabric admin, okay, to purchase the license, the fabric license that I was talking about, purchase. Okay, so it is not in your hand, unfortunately, unless you are the admin. So you can have multiple capacities. That means you can have multiple license, and depending upon that, okay, within every license, there is a capacity or a SKU. We call it as a stock keeping unit. Okay, so free will have some SKU, reserved instance will have some SKU, and pay as you go will have some SKU. So in Fabric, those SKUs, okay, it is called as the stock keeping unit. So here it will have like F SKUs. Okay, it is called as F SKUs, and F SKUs have equivalent P SKUs also, which is from the Power BI licenses. Okay, so if you have like an existing, so what Microsoft actually has done is that they have um, incorporated Fabric into the Power BI, existing Power BI service. So if you recall, Power BI has three services or three softwares, we call it BI softwares. Okay, the first one is the Power BI desktop application. The second is Power BI service. So desktop is absolutely free. It is something that is easily downloadable into a Windows OS only. Okay, you can only use it on the Windows operating system. And the third one is the mobile app. So if you have created a report and you want to publish that report, you do it in the Power BI service, correct? So now what Microsoft has done, instead of creating another because Power BI is a component in the Fabric uh, service. Okay, so Fabric, as we discussed, has these services incorporated as SaaS solution. Okay, they're nothing but SaaSified. So here you will find Databricks, you will find not Databricks, but the notebooks of Databricks. You will find the pipeline feature of Data Factory. You will find the storage features of the storages. You will find databases. You will find data warehouse, and those which I'm just specifying all of them is also a term that we are going to see, which is called as the items in Microsoft Fabric. Okay, so I'll just mention it as the fourth term. That is because there is another term before this. So all your lake houses, your warehouses, the databases, all your notebook pipelines, data flow, all of that you will be working with is called as an item. So primarily you will be working with the fabric item. Okay, they are termed as the fabric item. So over here, what they have done since Power BI, the Databricks or Data Factory, these are the existing data services, but where they are on the cloud platform and they are platform as a service. So what they have done, I told you, they have classified these things. Okay, so so these are the components that are there. So I'll just share the presentation. So this is basically the fabric that fabric comprises of. So you have the data factory, you have Synapse, you have data warehousing, which is nothing but Synapse only, Azure Synapse Analytics. You have the notebooks coming in from the Databricks service. You have pipelines. You have the real-time analytics, that is the Azure Data Explorer, and you have Power BI also now. Okay, incorporated in this. Let's say you want to do reporting. Okay, you can do that online itself. Okay, so that is why Power BI has been incorporated. So these are the services that Fabric has incorporated within them. So now earlier we had Power BI service only where we could publish reports and work with reports, correct? So the same thing, now what they have done is now they call it as Fabric. So everything has now been shifted to Fabric. Yes, you still have the Power BI service, no doubt about it. But if you had the Power BI licenses, okay, that is the pro or the premium licenses, you can still use the Fabric, you can still work with the Fabric content, but what you need is just a Fabric license. Additional Fabric license, you can definitely use like the Pro license or the PPU. Okay. But along with that, you will need a minimum of F64 SKU, that is the stock keeping unit, that is coming in the free license. Okay. So the free license uses a trial capacity, and the stock keeping, I mean, the capacity name that they have given, which is the stock keeping unit, is called as F64. So F64 will have some cores, will have some memory associated with it, and you're using that in order to perform data analysis using Fabric. Okay, so that is what is basically the capacity. So capacity here is measured in context of CUs, that is capacity units. If I have to measure the consumption of every capacity, how much cores am I using, how much memory have I utilized, which is coming with the stock keeping unit. Okay, then you will do that in context to the CUs. Okay, you will be talking about in context to the CUs. So this is a very important thing. So when you create a tenant, okay, after you have created a tenant, within the tenant, you need to assign something called as capacities. Okay, you will have capacities created. So one will be a sales capacity. Actually, this has to be the fifth term. Why fifth? I'll tell you. Okay. Then you can have a marketing capacity. And within here also now, okay, capacities will be allocated like subdivision wise, they will be created. Okay, I don't know much about the department, so I will not add in here, but you can definitely create and assign capacities within the sub departments. Okay, so this is how how the Fabric architecture is built. Okay, by the Fabric admin, it is again in the hands of the Fabric admin. So either you create an organizational tenant, and within that you create capacities, like how we have the entra id, and within entra id, like we are entra id is nothing but an instance of the subscription. So within entra id we can create tenants, right? And that tenants I can assign a resource group or something, right? We create management groups, and within management groups we have subscriptions, and then subscriptions are further divided into resource groups, correct? So it's the same concept, just in context to the tenant and capacity. Okay. Now, once you have created a capacity, you need to create or assign this capacity to a workspace. So a workspace is actually where you will be basically using. So a workspace is like actually where you will be working with the fabric content. So all these items that you create, whether it's a lake house, a warehouse, okay, which I talked about the integration or the workloads that you have to separately create in these above mentioned services, right? In Databricks, I could only work with notebooks. With Data Factory, I could only work with pipelines, correct? So the unification that we are talking about, that Microsoft Fabric is actually a unified platform. It is actually the workspace that you create. If you recall, while we created, I showed you all the Databricks or the Data Factory service. We have different names assigned, different workspaces created, because of which integration is a challenge, correct? So here now, I told you Microsoft Fabric is a unified platform of all these services. Okay. So what is that unified platform? It is nothing but your workspace. So within the workspace, whatever workloads you need, whether it is to do data engineering, to work with data warehouses, to perform data science, to perform data analysis using Power BI reports, all of that you can create in this workspace. Now, workspace in Fabric is of two types. One is a My Workspace, which is called as a default workspace that gets created, and it's a private workspace, okay, where let's say you don't want to share the work that you have done with your colleagues. Okay, you feel it is not up to the mark or something, and you don't want to share it, you want to keep it to yourself, or you want a place where you only work, where you do your work. It's not something that is shared across colleagues, across your teammates. Okay. So that is called as a My Workspace or a private workspace. So, like if you go to the office, if you have a dedicated space where you can sit and work, where you keep your own things, okay, where you have space to keep your laptop, your bags, your tiffin, or whatever. Okay. It's like a dedicated space for you where you work, right? How a boss, okay, gets a cabin where they work. Okay, they get a private space, whatever they want, they can do inside that space, right? Similarly, here also, if you want to get a workspace to do or work with Fabric content, okay, and you don't want to share that with anyone, you get a default workspace, and that is called as My Workspace. Definitely, you can create a shared workspace where you can share and collaborate with your teammates, with your colleagues, in order to share the work, okay, between among the team members, right? When we are working with a project or something, we tend to um share the work that we have done with, so that things are faster implemented. So the same thing you can do even with your Fabric content. So the workspace is where you are actually creating your items, whether it's a lake house or warehouse, all of it is coming under one roof, right? Which integration, I told you, is a challenge. Or at times, what happens, you open multiple tabs. If you see here, I had to open multiple tabs to see the workspace or the work that I have done in the data breaks, or the work I have done in the data factory, right? So here you can see we have a lot of, it leads to a lot of time. It consumes a lot of time, right? That's the only important thing. So that is what you have to keep in mind, that here, because you don't have to navigate between different tabs, okay, how much notebooks have you created, you'll have to go to the Databricks service, or pipelines, if you have to monitor, you have to go specifically to that service and you have to monitor. But that is not the case with the Fabric, because everything is coming in one workspace. Okay. Then the next term that you need to know is called as an experience. So what is an experience? Like I told you all, this particular tool is for data professionals, okay, whether it's a data engineer or a data scientist or a data analyst, correct? It is for them to use. So over here, let's say you want to focus on a specific functionality within the data domain. That is, let's say you just want to do data engineering, you just want to focus on data science, okay, you just want to focus on data analysis, that is Power BI, or you want to do real-time analytics, or you want to just work with databases. So when you are working with a specific functionality, that is called as an experience in Microsoft Fabric. So what experience do you want? Do you want to work with data engineering? Do you want to do data science? Do you want to do data analysis? Do you want to do real-time analytics? Okay, that is termed as a experience. So experience is like how we want to get an experience of something. So it's the same thing here. You want an experience of data engineering? Okay, that is an experience. So data engineering, data science, okay, all the components that I just showed you, okay, they are nothing but experiences in Microsoft Fabric. Okay, so experience is a specific functionality. For example, you have the data engineering, data science. Okay, yeah. So these are the terms that you need to know when you start working with Fabric. So the first thing that you need is you need to be a part of the enterprise. Second, you need is a Fabric license and a permission from the Fabric admin in order to use the Fabric portal or the Fabric subscription. Okay. So now if you have to go and work with the Fabric content, you need to use this URL that is called as app.fabric.microsoft.com. Okay. This is the URL that you will be using, and using this URL, you will be able to, okay, if it's not that everyone can use the Fabric subscription. Keep that in mind. You need permission from your admin in order to do that. And if you have the permission, okay, you can go to the Fabric portal. It is also called as a Fabric portal, where you can go and create Fabric specific content. Okay, so let's just see how to use this. Okay, we are going to do a very simple demo. So I'm going to create a workspace in Microsoft Fabric. So for that, I'm going to log into this. So I'm going to be using the URL. So I'll just say app.microsoft.com. And here, if you see, it is asking for the organizational email, that is your organizational official ID. So you can only use that. Okay, remember that. And of course, you need permission from the admin. So I already have that. So I'll just say .com. So I told you this has already been incorporated. Okay, so this is like these are the components or these are the experiences that Microsoft Fabric has. So you can see this is the Fabric portal. Okay, you have the data science experience, data warehouse experience. Okay, so either you can navigate to the experience from here, or you can just come to the left hand side corner and you can navigate to the experiences. So the same list of experiences you can see here. So now if you want to create a workspace, so just navigate to okay, so these are the experiences that are there. So you can just navigate either from this uh, space, or you can just click on one of the experiences from the left hand side corner. So here I'll go to the data engineering experience. Let's just see. So here if you see a default workspace, that is the My Workspace is already created. It's not something I have created. It has been given to me by Microsoft Fabric. Okay. Now let's just go ahead and create a simple workspace where you can share this workspace with your teammates. You can collaborate with them. So I'll come to the workspaces tab. And if you see here, I'll click on new workspace, give this a name. And to this, if you see, I have already been assigned a capacity. It's a trial license. So I have been assigned a trial license. You can't use pro or premium. So I already have a Power BI PPU license. But if I have to make use of Fabric content, I can't use the Power BI licenses. I will need at least a trial license also to go with it. Okay, so Power BI workspace that you create is different, and Microsoft Fabric workspace that you create is different. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'll show you the difference also. What is the Power BI workspace and what is the Fabric workspace? Because when you're working with Fabric content, you need a Fabric specific license. But when you're working with Power BI specific content, you can use the Pro or the PPU existing licenses if you have. Okay, if you have those licenses, you can definitely use them. So over here, just go ahead and say apply. So here you can see a workspace has been created. You can see here there is a diamond symbol that comes next to the workspace name. So this diamond symbol indicates that this particular workspace is a Fabric specific workspace. That means you can create, delete, whatever you want with all the Fabric content also. Okay, now what do I mean? Like when I said the Power BI workspace, let's just create a simple Power BI workspace. So I'll call this as the webinar for WS. Now what I will do, I will apply a different, okay, sorry. I'll apply a different license to this. So I'll edit the license info. So I'll select the PPU. So I have the Power BI PPU license. Okay, so I'm going to select that license. So if you see here, you don't see a diamond symbol. This is a different diamond symbol. Here you don't see an additional diamond symbol. If you go back to that workspace, can you see here the diamond is a little different from that? Okay, so this indicates this is a Fabric workspace, whereas that is a Power BI specific workspace. So here, if you come to new item, and you say you want to create a lake house, okay, let's say you want to create a lake house, you will see that there is an error. You will see it is giving you an error, and that error is that you can't create a Fabric specific content because this workspace is not a Fabric, it doesn't have a Fabric license to it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, here you will have to this is the difference between the two. So I'll just delete this workspace. Okay, now um, let's go ahead. What I'll do is I'll just share this picture that I have created with you all in the chat. You can access it as an image. So just use that. Okay, I can't add it. Okay, you can see the recording. You will get the reference. Or I'll share the material. The links, like I said, I will be sharing the reference link also with you all. So you can see that over there. Now, let's do one thing now. Let's go through let's do an overview of all the modules that are there in the DP-600 curriculum. Okay, let's do an overview of that. So this, what we studied right now, was a part of the first skill. So I'll just list down that over here. Okay, so the first skill that we know is called as maintain or so these are the skills that are there. So the first one is maintain data analytics solution. The second skill is prepare data. And the third is, so this is an update. The one I had showed you all was older, I mean, those were skills that were there earlier, but now they have I mean, they have put it into only 3 skills. And it's okay. So these are the 3 skills, and with these 3 skills, you have certain modules that are mapped. So in the first is just the introduction, getting started with Microsoft Fabric. Okay. A very important feature of Microsoft Fabric. Let's just discuss that. Okay. I want to talk about it. Let's say you work in a retail company, and we know that in our organization there are multiple departments, correct? Let's say we have a sales department. So this is the sales department. Okay. Let's say we have a marketing department. Let's say we have HR. So I'll just do one thing. It's the HR department. And let's say we have, it's a retail company. So let's say we have an inventory department. And let's say this is the customer service department. Okay. So let's say here we have multiple such departments, right? And let's say every department has their own way of storing the data. Okay. So we all know what is a data lake, right? We all know what is a data lake. So let's say every department has its own data lake. I'm going to call this as sales. We'll call this as sales data lake. Whatever, let it be. I just want to explain the concept. So let's say this is the marketing data lake. Then even HR has their own data lake. And even customer service has their own data lake. Now let's say this is a retail company, right? And we want to, so let's say sales and marketing, we all know go hand in hand, right? And they want to share the data, okay, among themselves. So if you want to see that how much sales was done, depending upon your marketing strategy, okay, how much sales, has it boosted the sales or have the sales gone down for a specific product? Okay, if you want to see that, or you want to see how has the marketing campaign, or I mean, they go hand in hand, right? You need to uh, use, or you need to analyze the data from both these departments, and let's say they want to share the data. Okay, so what happens over here? Because the sales department is maintaining their own data lake where they're uploading their own data, and similarly, my marketing team is also doing the same thing. Now, let's say they want to share the data. Okay, they want to share the data. So what happens over here? Okay, you create a copy of the data. So let's say sales team wants to share the data with the marketing team. So they will create a copy of their data, correct? They will create a copy. So this is the copy. And actually, I'll write it over here. I'll draw it below over here. So they will share a copy of their data with the marketing team. So what happens over here? Since you have different data lakes and every department is maintaining separate data lakes and it needs to be maintained by individually. Okay, again, now if I have to share the data, I need to create a copy of that data and I need to share it, correct, with the respective departments. So this leads to a problem, and that problem is called as a data silo or a data silo. You can just call it whatever you want. Okay. It leads to a problem where people are managing different data lakes. Okay. Where different data lakes is being managed. Correct. So here it leads to a problem, and that problem is called as the data silos. So over here, because you have multiple, now let's say you want to share this sales data with the HR team or with the inventory team, etc., with whoever you want. So what will happen? Of the same, so there's a copy lying with the marketing team, there will be a copy with the HR team, there'll be a copy with the inventory team, correct? So this will lead to multiple copies of the same data that is there. So it is a challenge, it is not a good thing to have multiple copies. So instead, what you can do, what Microsoft thought is that, okay, people are storing their data in different storages also. Let's do one thing. If we have unified the data services, let's even unify the data storage. Let's even bring the data at a single location. And that single location in Microsoft Fabric, that single location in Microsoft Fabric is called as the One Lake. So One Lake is like a OneDrive. Okay, we all know what is a OneDrive, correct? Which is used to upload Excel. I mean, any file, right? Whether it's an Excel file, a Word file, or a text file, an audio, video, images, etc. Any file that you want, you can upload to the OneDrive. No matter what the extension is, you can upload the file over there, correct? So over here also, no matter what the data is, okay, no matter what the data is, it will be loaded at a single location, okay, and that single location is called as the One Lake. So it is like a OneDrive, but for data. So now if the data is at a single location, so let's say sales data, sales okay, you have the sales data and sales team uploads the data into the OneDrive. Okay, similarly, marketing team uploads or the HR team uploads. What happens is that they all that data becomes available in a single location. It could be loaded as a lakehouse, it could be loaded, or it could be loaded as a file in the lakehouse, it could be loaded as a table in a warehouse or in a database. Okay, it could be loaded anywhere, it from any department. Okay, there will only be a single copy of the data. So if I'll show you an example of this. So I already have a workspace, or if you come here, so no matter how many workspaces you have, if you see at a single location, can you see all the data that is there? Okay, all the data is available over here. Okay, so this is what is called as the One Lake, where all the data, so I have uploaded it from different workspaces, but I can see it as a single copy over here. Okay, so let's say you have different workspaces, sales workspace, marketing workspace. They are all part of the same organizational tenant. They're following this. So what happens then? They get a single copy. Okay, even though if it's this tenant, so anyone working in the sales department will get a single copy. So whichever tenant you have, how much ever workspaces you create within that tenant, you get a single one lake. Okay. And using that, you can upload the data to that one lake. So what will happen? There will be a single copy. So if marketing team requires sales data, there will be only a single copy of it loaded. Sales team doesn't have to copy that data and store it into their data lake or in the data warehouse, correct? They just have to go to that one lake, pick up that data, and they can use it across and use it. So what will happen? There is a single copy. Now, if the data is also at a single location, applying data governance, applying security also becomes easy. Okay, that also becomes easy. So that is what is called as the one lake, and it is a very important um storage. So this is the storage, because here also if you see data is ingested from multiple storage accounts, you have databases and everything. So they are all scattered, right? Again, they are platform as a service. Even the storage accounts or the storage or the SQL database or the Cosmos DB that we have, they are also ultimately what do we say? Platform as a service, correct? So here also they will be configured separately. There's no common ground. There's no way in which we can extract the data from get the data from a single location. So that single location, Microsoft came up as, okay, let's even do that for data. And they did, and they created a single storage called as the One Lake. So One Lake has a base format in which it identifies, let's say, because I told you the format in which the data is loaded. It could be structured, semi-structured, unstructured, okay? But there is some format that it follows, that is a table or a file. So if it's a table, it uses the delta format. And if it's a file, okay, it understands the par key file. Okay, so this is the base format that One Lake will follow. Okay. Yeah. So this is what is the One Lake. So these all things that we discussed right now, it is a part of the first module. Okay. One Lake has a feature called as the shortcut feature. Okay, what is this shortcut? Shortcut is like let's say you want to load data into your One Lake, okay, and you have data present in an external storage or in an internal storage. Now, what do I mean by an internal storage? So One Lake has their internal storage where you can upload the data. So the first is the lakehouse, where you can prepare your data. So this is the second skill that we are talking about. The second storage that you can use is the warehouse. The third that you can use is an event house, actually, I would say. Event house. Fourth is the semantic model. Okay, so these are the ways in which you can load data. Okay, you can load data into the One Lake, into your Microsoft Fabric subscription. Along with that, with every tenant, you get a One Lake. So no matter how much ever workspaces you create, it could be a sales workspace, marketing workspace, okay, or capacities that you assign. With that, you get a single location, and that is One Lake. So if you load the data, whether it's a lake house or a warehouse or an event house or a semantic model, if you see here, KQL database is present within the event house itself. Okay, so this is what is called as the One Lake. So think of it, so here what will happen, only a single copy of your data will be maintained across any department that you have in your enterprise. Okay, so what is this shortcut feature now? So it is like a symbolic link. Okay, let's say you don't want to get the data, okay, into, let's say, a lake house without actually loading. So initially you have to load the data, okay, into the into the lake house or the warehouse. Okay, you need to initially load the data. So let's say you don't want to load the data, you just want to connect to the data source. Okay, the data source probably could be lying in the internal storages. Okay, it could be lying in the internal storages over here. Or it could be lying in external storages, like you have the Amazon S3 bucket, you have the medallion architecture will be available in the lakehouse. Yes, it is already enabled. I mean, medallion architecture will already be enabled in over here. So you don't have to, yeah. Basically, like I said, this is more the one lake that I'm talking about. Its main component actually, or the, what do we say? It is based on, it is like a lake-centric architecture only. So that means the base architecture for this is the lake house. So medallion architecture by default is enabled. Okay, so you can definitely design a lake medallion architecture over here. Definitely, you can do that. So you can create bronze layer, silver layer, gold layer. Okay, just you will have to use different items to do that. Okay. But in DP-600, as per the updated curriculum, they don't have the medallion architecture. I don't know why they removed it for reasons known only to Microsoft. Whereas, like, if you are talking about one lake and everything, I think it should be there, but they have removed it. Though I try and cover it in my trainings, I definitely cover this. But we are, like I said, we will be ending the session soon because there are not many participants. So we will not be like it's not there also if you talk about in terms of the DP-600. So yeah, we will not be covering that unfortunately. But I think everyone, I mean, it should have been kept. I don't know why they removed it, but keeping that aside, yes, coming back to the shortcut feature. So the shortcut feature is like I said, like a symbolic link that is created. Okay, let's say you don't want to load the data into the one lake, okay, without you initially, like I said, even in the lake house, you need to load the data, whether it's coming from an external source or something like that, or coming from an internal source also. Let's say it's coming from another lake house. Okay, let's say sales and marketing. Is the sales workspace. Okay, they have the same one lake. Let's say sales and marketing have the same one lake. Say this is your marketing workspace. So let's say here you have created a lake house, and we'll see the demo also. I'll show you all how to create a lake house. Okay. In Microsoft Fabric, the workspace that we have created, we will see how to do that. And then I'll show you all the shortcut feature also over there. So now let's say this is, and this is your, uh, and let's say this is your one lake. So over here, let's say if I want to get the mark, though they will have the access to the one lake. Let's say you don't want to load the data from the, let's say you don't have access on the workspace of sales workspace that has been created. Okay. And let's say you want to just connect to the lake house or extract the data. Okay. There is a single copy maintained, everything, etc. Okay. But let's say you want to ingest that data, okay, into your lake house. You want to ingest the data into your lakehouse without actually loading the data into it. Okay, normally you first of all, if you have to create a single copy, okay, even if you have to maintain that single copy of the data, you still need to load the data into the lakehouse. Okay, let's say you don't want to do that. You just want to connect to the data source. You want the data to lie at the source. It's just that you're creating a connection. Okay, so you can do that in two ways, like I told you. One is the internal way, like you connect to the internal storages of your one lake itself. So let's say you want to get the data that is there in the lake house created in the sales workspace. So you can do that by just creating a shortcut feature. So shortcut feature is like a link. Okay, it's just like a link that you create so that you can load, I mean, just connect actually. It's just like more like a pointer, okay, that you can point to the data source. So if you want to point to the lakehouse created in the sales workspace and you want to get that data, okay, the in the lakehouse of the management marketing workspace, you can create a internal shortcut. So this is like an internal shortcut that you create. Okay. The second shortcut that you can create is, let's say you want to connect to external storages like Amazon S3, Dataverse from the Power Platform, or Google Cloud Storage, or you want to connect to the Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account. What you would have to do is you will have to initially upload the data into the lakehouse. Okay, this, and when we do the demo, I think it will be more clear to you that you need to initially load the data into the lakehouse and then you can start using it. But let's say your data is lying in the Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Okay. And over there, you have to just, you don't want to ingest the data. Normally, if you have to ingest the data into the lakehouse from external storages, you need to use the pipeline copy activity to do that, or you need to use the data flow, okay, to extract the data. So here, uh, let's say you don't want to do a copy activity. Okay, you just want to connect to that external storage. Then you can create a external shortcut as well. Okay, so this is what is a very important feature of Microsoft Fabric's One Lake, that is the shortcut feature. Okay, here keep in mind data is not loaded. Okay, it's just you just connect to the data source. You're just pointing to the data source. So it's like a connection string that gets created. So here you're not actually ingesting the data. You're just connecting to the data source. So now let's just go ahead and see a simple demo. Okay, we are going to see what is a lakehouse. So that is what is coming in the second part. In the second skill, you will be primarily working with a lakehouse and a warehouse. Okay. And with a lakehouse, how can you ingest data? Various ways in which you can ingest the data. Okay, so I'll just specify it below. Use the Apache Spark engine, okay, in order to do big data analysis and work with delta tables. So how can you work with delta tables over here? The medallion architecture in the lakehouse. Okay, you can also work with the medallion architecture. So this is what is covered in the second module, second skill. And then you have the warehouse, wherein you can see how to create a warehouse. Okay, how to load data into a warehouse, how to query the data that is there, do SQL analysis. So here primarily you will be writing SQL queries. Okay, so how to load the data, query the data, okay, into the warehouse, how to monitor the warehouse, okay, and also secure it. So what are the different ways? So here also, like we did the introduction, we understood one lake architecture. We understood. So here also in terms of securing the fabric service. So here you can secure it at two levels. One is the workspace level. Okay, workspace level security and access level, sorry, item level security. Okay, you can manage over here. Is this clear? Okay, so these are the things that you can do. You can also, now in the third skill, so here you will be basically working with a semantic model. Now, what is a semantic model? A semantic model is used, okay? Yeah, in warehouse also, here we will be understanding what is a warehouse. We will be understanding the data models, okay, or the schemas. That is the star schema and the snowflake schema. Okay, and then you will be in the semantic model. So what is a semantic model? It is nothing but where it's basically a Power BI model that is used in order to perform reporting analysis. Okay, if you want to analyze, create reports. So this is the model that is used, and it is something that has your DAX calculations, relationships that you create between two tables. Okay, your model, whether it's a star schema or a snowflake schema. Okay, all of that is packaged. Your data basically is packaged into this semantic model. And what are the various ways in which you can uh, use the semantic model for data analysis? How can you secure the semantic model? How can you reuse the semantic model? All that is what is covered in this third skill. Okay, so secure it, reuse. How can you improve the performance of the semantic model? Okay, so that you get good um, good results. Okay, your data analysis or the reports that you are creating, you get good results for it. Okay, so all of that is basically being covered, and this is done in 4 days. Okay, so the training is of 4 days, if you see. Yeah, and that's it. So this is what is covered in the three skills that are there. Okay, the first skill is maintain. Wait, it's okay. Okay, so this is what is covered. Now let's just see what is a lake house, how to create a lake house, and how to do an end-to-end analytics using the lake house, a very simple demo. And after the demo is completed, I will talk about how can you prepare, where can you study all these all this that I talked about. What is the a little bit about the exam pattern. Okay, I will talk about where you can schedule the exam, etc. And then we will be ending the session. So hopefully by 2 o'clock, we should be done. Okay. Like I said, there are not many participants, so we will be ending the session very soon. So we will try and finish it by 2:15 max. Okay. So just one more thing, guys, I forgot to tell you all that Aarti has shared a course achievement badge URL. Please go ahead and redeem that. She has mentioned the steps also. Use your personal ID. Do not use your official ID. Please use your personal ID and redeem these badges. Okay, this is like a participation certificate. And also right now she has shared the feedback form. So I would love to hear your feedback, guys, how you found this session. Okay, was it a little informative or whatever? Please give us your valuable feedback, honest feedback, whatever it is. We appreciate it. So please do not forget to do these two things before we leave or we end the session today. So just a humble request to everyone, please kindly do that. Okay, till the time I'm explaining, you all can do these things simultaneously. Okay, so please go ahead. Do not forget to give us your feedback. Okay, now going ahead, let's understand what is a lake house. Okay, so a lake house is nothing but a combination of the data lake and the data warehouse. So let's say you have, so here the data will be stored, okay, in the data lake. So what we are not going to cover is the warehouse, some part of the Spark engine, some part of the Delta tables we are not going to be covering. Yes, the YouTube link, guys, Archie has shared it above. Okay, you will have to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or based on after you subscribe, then only you will be able to see this webinar that we have conducted. So please do not forget to subscribe. Okay, Archie, if you're there, if you can reshare our social media links, please do that so that they can subscribe to the YouTube channel and they can get the recording of this session. Okay, so we will not be talking about, no, we haven't done any previous webinar on this. This is the first time that we are doing. Okay, and honestly, if I have to be really honest, guys, this is a 4-day training. So we can't anyway cover anything in a single day. Okay. Unfortunately, even if we have to do it for one day, we will not be able to cover the entire thing. It's not a training, it's a webinar. So naturally, we will not be able to cover all the topics. So here I'm just doing some of the topics which I feel is very easy to understand. Only that I am covering over here. Okay. Yeah. Coming to the lake house. So a lake house is nothing but a combination of the data lake and the data warehouse. Okay. It is where, so basically, if I have to use a lake house, you can only use it for semi-structured, because the base format, okay, where actually you load the data is a data lake. Okay. Here is where you load the data lake. Sorry, you load the data into the data lake. So it has to be for the semi-structured and unstructured data only, that too in a file format. So like how a data lake works, exactly the same way a lake house will work, but just using the Spark engine. So the engine that is used over here is the Spark engine. Okay, the way Spark engine works, exactly the same way it is going to work over here. And now, once you load the data, it has to always, or you can always load the data in context. I mean, it has to always be a file format. Okay, it could be a CSV file, JSON file, images, audios, anything. Okay, but it has to be in the file format because it is something that is built like a data lake. Okay, and on top of the data lake, if you want to do SQL analysis, you want to analyze your data using the SQL language, okay, but keeping the Spark engine, okay, then that component is the data warehouse. Okay, so that is, keep in mind, okay, that if you want to, the files that you load into the data lake, if you want to analyze them using the SQL language, that is where you can use the lake house. Okay. Now, uh, when we create a lake house, okay, when we create a lake house in Microsoft Fabric, there are three things that get created by default. It's not something I create. Okay, it is something that is given to you by default by Microsoft. The first thing that you get is called as the lakehouse itself, which is nothing but the data lake. Okay, the data lake component of the lakehouse, where where you actually load the data. Okay, this is the very first place where you load the data. The second component that gets created is the semantic model. Okay, and this is a default model that gets created, which you can use for creating Power BI reports. Okay, this is the model that you can use in order to create the Power BI reports. And the third thing that gets created is called as a SQL analytics endpoint. Okay, so this is nothing but the data warehouse component of the lakehouse. Okay, where you can write SQL queries. Okay, where you work or do simple SQL queries. So keep in mind, this endpoint that gets created is a read-only endpoint, meaning you can just write simple BQL statements, that is select statements only. Okay, you can just write select statements without, I mean, no other statements like DML, DDL, okay, where something of where you're modifying the data, okay, where you are changing the data, you can't use those statements over here. Keep that in mind. Okay, so that is the primary difference between the data warehouse in Lakehouse and the warehouse item in Microsoft Fabric. Okay, so the warehouse is No, the data modeling is not different. If you have to compare the data warehouse and the semantic model, the data modeling is absolutely the same. So there's no difference at all over there. So the same schema that you can use or the same models that you can create in a data warehouse, it's the same thing even in your uh, so I'll just reshare my screen. I think it had some unstable connection. Yeah, so it's the same. There is absolutely no difference between the data modeling in the data warehouse and data modeling in the semantic model. Okay, just one more thing here. If you see in the lakehouse, or the primary use of the lakehouse is to load semi-structured or unstructured data in Microsoft Fabric. Okay, keep in mind it is semi-structured and unstructured, and the format in which you load it is only the file format. So here, when you are doing SQL analysis, the format is not a, I mean, it's not a structured table. Keep in mind, it is a file format. It's not a table. It's the underlying architecture that is there. It is of a file, right? Or the underlying layer, it is a file. The data is coming from a file and it's not a structured table. Okay. It is a file. So over here, you have to keep in mind that you can't make changes to the file through this analytics endpoint. So keep in mind, it is a read-only endpoint. That means you can do only reading of the data. You can't write to the data or make any changes to the data or delete the data. If you have to delete the data or anything, yes, delta table, delta table will not be used, key file will not be used in the SQL analytics endpoint, in the data warehouse component of the lakehouse. Keep that in mind. But if you want to use the delta table, or because as you have said over here, it is a lakehouse. So the lakehouse has and it is working on the Spark engine. So Spark engine, if I have to store tables, the tables are going to be delta in schema and the files are going to be key in schema. Okay, so that is why, remember, that is the base format. That is why if you have to do SQL analysis, that is only if you have to modify the data or anything using the SQL editor. So here basically the interface that you're using is the SQL editor, and we will see a lab also, like I said. Okay, so when you create a lakehouse, these are the three things that come default with it. So let's just see a lab. I think that will make it more clear to you all. Okay, so I'm coming here. I'll be using this workspace. I'll say new item and I'm going to select. So you can see the items. These are the items that we discussed. Okay, so you have for preparing the data, I mean extracting the data, storing the data. Then you can also prepare the data using notebooks, using data pipelines, using data flow. Okay, you can analyze it, create AI skill ML model using the notebook. So Python language is used in order to train and deploy the model. Then you can track the data, create a Power BI report here itself. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create a lakehouse. And I'll say create. So here, if you see, this is called as the Lakehouse Explorer. So if you see here, you have only two formats. That is the file format and the table format. Okay, so the tables here. So since we are in the lakehouse, so this is the data lake, guys. This is the data lake part of the lakehouse. So over here, you can only get a delta table. Okay, and I will show you all how to create a delta table. A simple delta table we will be creating here. Just before that, if you come to the workspace, can you see three things that have been created by default? You have the lakehouse, you have the semantic model, which you can use to create a Power BI report. Okay, it's a default model if you see. So whatever data you load into the lakehouse, that will be converted as a semantic model. Okay, and you can use that model to create a Power BI report. Then the third thing that gets created is a SQL analytics endpoint. This is the data warehousing part, okay, that is there that you can use in your SQL analysis only. Okay, so now let's go ahead and upload data into the lakehouse. So here, if you see, if you come to the table section, you can't load data directly into the table section. Okay, because this is a data lake. So data lake, the format is a file format. So you can only upload data as a file. So here I will go ahead and click on these three dots, or you can come here also and you can load the data. So I'll just click on these three dots. I'll say upload files. Now, if you see, it is almost similar to your blob storage or data lake Gen 2 storage account. So I'm going to browse for the file, and we can only do it from the local system. So I'm going to ingest the data from there. Click on upload, and it will upload the data to the file. So if you have to see with whether the data has been loaded or not, just click again on this file and you can see that the data has been loaded. Now we will just preview the data. So you just have to click on the file and this is the data. Okay. Now you can easily convert this CSV file into a delta table. Okay, you can convert this to very easy to convert it to a delta table. Just click on these, come to the file, just click on these three dots and say load to tables and click on new table. And you can see here it is automatically creating whatever is the file name, the same name it is using for the table, and it is automatically detecting the type of that particular file. So it's a CSV file. Okay, so just click on load. So remember here, the table that will be created is going to be a delta table and not a relational schema. It is not going to have a relational schema. Okay, it is going to be a delta schema. So there's a difference between these two schemas. Okay, so we'll just wait for some time for the table to be loaded. Yeah, so you can see the table has been loaded and it can see it comes over here in the table section. And if you see, it has picked up the same schema as your file. So if you preview it, you will see the same schema. So if you see the table and at the bottom of that table, you can see there's a triangle symbol. So this triangle symbol indicates that this table is a delta table. Keep that in mind. It is a delta table. Now you can go ahead and perform SQL analysis. Just keep in mind, guys, again, if you have to do SQL analysis, okay, on top of the lakehouse, if you don't convert the file to a delta table, you will not be able to do any SQL analysis. So keep in mind that it has to be, first of all, converted to a delta schema. And once that is done, then Microsoft Fabric internally does some changes and converts it to a format that is understood in the data warehouse. Okay, but primary requirement is that you convert this to a delta table. Now let's go ahead and do some SQL analysis. But just before that, if you want to create like a shortcut, okay, you can create shortcuts on to only in the lakehouse and in the KQL database. So we are not covering that. But over here in the, you can't create a shortcut in the warehouse. Okay, so if you go to the workspace, say new item, and you say warehouse, okay, on the warehouse, you will not be able to create a shortcut. Shortcut can only be created in the lakehouse. So either you create a shortcut on the table section, that means the table that gets that the table that you connect to, or the schema that it will have, the table, okay, will be a delta table. Keep that in mind. So whenever you create a shortcut and you are connecting to a data source, and you want it in the form of a table, but the schema will be a delta schema. Okay. Then if you want to create a file shortcut, you can even do that. So if you click on these three dots, you see here you have this option of new shortcut. So just click on that. And you can see here you have two ways in which you can create it. So here you can see you have the Microsoft OneLake internal storages. So if you click on it, so internal data that is there in your workspaces, different workspaces, because it's a single copy. So you can connect to them without actually loading the data. Okay. Like how we loaded the data over here without actually doing that. You can load the data. I mean, you can just connect to the data source, and you can also connect to the external sources. Only these external sources are available currently. Okay, so this is how you can create shortcuts. So the same shortcut options you will get even on a table, but keep in mind it will be a table. You'll get it in the form of a table, and the schema of that table will be a delta table. Now let's go ahead and do a simple SQL analysis on top of this table. Okay, so if I have to do that, we just need to switch the views, and it is very easy. So if you come here on the right hand side corner, and if you click on the drop down, so currently we are in the lake house, we are exploring files and folders. So this is the data lake. But let's say you want to query this same data, you can write SQL queries, and you just have to change the visual interface to the SQL analytics endpoint. Just switch to this, and you can see that you get a interface which is a warehouse. Okay, so this is the warehouse, and you can see your table over here. Now you can just write simple queries. So if you have to write simple queries, you just have to come to this SQL. If you see there's a file, I mean there's a editor. Okay, so you can definitely come here, just click on new SQL query. And if you see here, the interface is the same as your SSMS, that is SQL Server Management Studio. It's the same thing. Or if you've worked with Azure SQL databases, it's the same interface, right? So here I'll just say select item. I'm just doing a simple group by operation. It's just a simple query that I am writing. So I'll just say run, and it will do a group by operation. So like I said, again, this is a read-only endpoint. You can write only simple select D or DQL statements. You can't write any other statements over here. Okay. Now, let's say some people are not good with, okay, just a second, guys. Yeah. So now let's say people are not don't know how to write SQL language. Okay. You all can also visualize this query, and you can do some transformations. So let's say you are good with Power Query Editor, you're good with Power BI, you have a Power BI experience. Okay. So you can definitely uh, I mean, use your Power Query skills or query the data using the Power Query editor over here. So you can definitely visualize the query. So if you have to do that, just come to this drop down again, select this new visual query. Now you have to drag the table onto this canvas. So just drag it, and you can see here it is similar to the applied steps that we see in the Power Query Editor. Now you can go ahead and perform a query visualization. I mean, you can visualize the queries over here. So just click on the plus icon, and whatever changes you want, you can do. So you can see here you get the same exact transformations that you can do on top of the in that you find in the Power Query Editor. The same transformations we can see over here. So you can just select choose column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop columns over here. I'm just going to keep two columns. So I'll say choose columns, and I'm just going to go with the first two columns. Click on OK. Okay, so only two columns. That means all the other columns have been deleted or dropped. Now you can do a simple group by operation also. Just click on the plus icon. Just search for the group by and you can do a group by operation. So I don't want to do it on the order line number. I want to do it on the order number. Give this a name. So I will call this as line items. And I will call this as count distinct values. And I'll select this as the call, this thing. Just click on OK. And now you can see a simple group by has been done. Now you can also, so if you recall, the third component that had been created was semantic model, a default semantic model. So you can use that semantic model also. So just go to the reporting tab and just say new report. So what it will do, it will use that default semantic model and it will using that, sorry, you can visualize the data. You can create a Power BI report. So let's just see how to do that. So just click on continue. So here, if you see, it is exactly the same as your Power BI desktop application so that you can create reports, right? You can work with reports over here. So you can just do normal Power BI, I mean, create a simple report over here. So I'll take the table view and you can see only one file we had loaded. So the same data has been created over here. Just before that, I just forgot one more thing. So if you see here in over here in the data warehouse, you have this model layouts. So if you want to do data modeling also, you can do that. So I'll just do a refresh. Don't know why, but you can definitely do modeling of the data by coming to the model layouts. Okay, it's not picking up the data. I don't know why. Yeah. So if you see here, you can do data modeling. So currently we have only one file. Okay. So if now what are these tables? This you can read about when you do monitor a data warehouse. Okay. When you come to this module, okay, you will be making use of those tables over there. So if you see here, you have your you can do modeling. Okay, you can model the data into a star schema, snowflake schema. So this all you will be studying when you do data warehousing in Microsoft Fabric. Now let's go ahead and create a report view. Let's create a report, sorry. So here we have it. And I'll use the table. So I'll take the item and I will take the unit price. So here you can see it has created, it's exactly the same interface as your Power BI. Okay, no change at all. If you know how to work with the visuals, you can definitely create that. Keep in mind, guys, this particular certification requires a prerequisite that you know Power BI, you know Databricks, you know Python language, you know SQL language. Okay, it is very important. If you don't know that, then you will not understand because it's a little advanced. Okay, it's a little advanced course. So you will have to be good with Python language, with SQL language, with using Databricks, Data Factory, Power BI. Okay, you need that. Okay. Now once this is done, just save the report. Click on the save icon and save it to this workspace. Give it a name. So I'll call it as item sales report and click on save. And once that is done, okay, you can now, if you go to the workspace, you will see four things. That is your lakehouse, the default semantic model, and the SQL analytics endpoint, and the Power BI report. Okay, so here you can see you could create an end-to-end analytical solution using the lakehouse. Okay, you could do a end-to-end analytics. Okay, you can do the same thing with warehouse also. You can just create. So whenever you create a warehouse also, I'll just create one simple one. I'll not add any data to it. So if you just say warehouse, and if you go to the workspace, so this is a simple warehouse. It's the same interface, just the difference is that this is more for structured data and that is more for semi-structured and unstructured data. Okay, just keep that in mind. And you have along when you create a warehouse, you also get a default semantic model created, okay, which you can use again to create a Power BI report. Okay, so this is all about how you can work with the I mean this is about the DP-600. Now let's just understand from where you can prepare, where you can go and study for this particular certification. And I'll share the link also with you all in the chat. Yeah, so the name of the certification, as I said in the morning, is Microsoft Certified Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate. Okay, it's a 4-day training and it covers these three skills. So I'll just share this with you all in the chat. Okay, so this is where you can come, and these are the four skills. So we discussed some part of it. We discussed the Microsoft Fabric. We talked about the Fabric admin. So the Fabric admin has a lot of responsibilities apart from the ones I mentioned. Okay, it has other responsibilities also. So you have to study about that, as well as you will have to look at the security level, that is the workspace level access and the item level access, etc. will be covered over here. So this is where you can come and you can study for the DP-600 exam. Okay, they have labs inside it. So if you just go to the data warehouse and you can see here you have more modules inside it. Okay, you can see there is a lab. Okay, so we did this particular lab right now. Okay, so this is the lab that we did. Okay, so you can come in, you can study. Okay, you can you will need interactive, I mean, you can use your organizational tenant and you can work with the lab. So this is how you can come and study for DP-600. Okay, let's say you have come I'm sorry. Let's say you have completed studying for it, and now you want to give the exam. So in this very link, if you scroll down, you can schedule the exam. Okay, and you can see here you have this option to schedule. This is the cost of the exam. Okay, so you can see, so it roughly comes down to 5,000 because of the taxes and etc. So it roughly comes down to that. So you can definitely schedule the exam over here. Okay, through a Pearson View. It's a third party software that Microsoft has tied up with, and they conduct the exam. So this exam is going to be proctored. Okay, if you have in the past given any Microsoft exam. Okay, it could be any before DP-600, like DP-203, any. I mean, it could be any Microsoft associate level exam. Okay, you might know how it works. Okay, it's the same thing with this exam also. Sorry, I was just having a sip of water. You will still require an enterprise as an independent, I mean, as an individual, you will not be able to, because Microsoft Fabric doesn't allow you to create use the your personal ID or something. You have to be a part of an enterprise, so you'll have to use your enterprise ID in order to work with it, in order to practice the lab environment, etc. So that unfortunately is not possible. So it's not like Azure that you get 30 days free trial. Here you get 60 days. The license, if you recall, I talked about the free license. So here you get 60 days to use this. Okay, this trial capacity, you can use it for 60 days and you can practice the labs. Okay, and the data, everything. So there is, so I'll share the GitHub link also with you all, which will have all the fabric, uh, which has all the fabric labs. So let me just do that in the chat. So it's not just um, about the DP-600 labs. This also has other labs also. So what has Microsoft basically done is that they, the certification name is DP-600, but nowadays they have come up with a concept called as applied skills. So what is applied skills? You all can definitely give applied skills, by the way. It is absolutely free. Okay, it is something that will test your skills practically. So DP-600 is more like an MCQ based exam, and it is going to test your knowledge theoretically. That means you will have MCQs, okay, in the exam, and there will be around 45 to 60 questions, okay, that will be there in the exam, and there's no negative marking, nothing. You the passing marks is 700 out of 1000, that is 70% you should get. And along with that, there will be a case study in the exam for sure. There's going to be a case study in the exam. So the questions in DP-600 or any Microsoft certification also, if you see, it is more scenario based questions, more fill in the blanks and etc. So in case you haven't ever given any Microsoft certification, I would recommend that you use this sandbox experience. So here you will come across the different kinds of questions that are asked during the exam, and the interface also you will get familiar with it. So before you give the exam, please do launch this sandbox. It's free. Okay, it's absolutely free. You don't have to pay anything. Okay, you just need to create a a Microsoft ID. You need to have a Microsoft account, and you can just use the sandbox experience to see how the interface is, what kind of questions or the pattern of questions are asked in the exam. Okay, so you can definitely look at this, okay, and just get a overview of how the exam looks. Okay, the exam is for 100 minutes, roughly 120 minutes, because there is some survey that they conduct before you go for the exam. Okay, so they have this survey that they conduct, so you'll have to just you'll have to give that survey. So they will ask you like how good you are at that particular skill, etc. So they set aside 20 minutes for it, and then 100 minutes is for the remaining certification, for the remaining questions. So here there will be three sections that you will get. Okay, one section will have, the first section will be for sure case study based questions will be asked. Then the second section will be where you will have around 37 questions. Okay, so six case study based questions, 37 MCQ based questions, like simple, straightforward questions. And then you will have another section where there will be three questions, sorry, which is a very important section. Why? Because you can't go back to that section. And in section three, like if you answer any question, okay, if you give an answer to any question, you can't even review that answer. So once you submit the answer is submitted. Like it is, you have answered your answer is submitted. So you have to be very careful in section 3, especially when you give the exam. Whereas in section 1, you can review the answers. Okay, but once you submit that entire section, you will not be able to go back to that section. Okay, whereas in section 2, you can you can review the section, you can go back to that section also, but in section 1 you can review the questions but you can't go back to that question, and in section 3 once you answer the questions you can't go back to the answers, nor can you, like, once you submit the section, nor can you go back to that section. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, and let's say you have passed the DP-600 exam. Okay, the renewal is very easy. Okay, you just have to so the exam is valid for only a year. Okay, after 1 year you will have to renew the certification again. The renewal is super easy, guys. Okay, there will be some 50 questions that will be asked, and it's like an open book test, basically, I would say. You can use Copilot, Chat GPT to answer those questions, but I would not recommend you all to do it. But in case you all want to, you can. It's an open book test, so definitely you can make use of it, and you can clear the. So renewal is very easy. Just what is important is that you don't miss out on the renewal date. Let's say you have passed the exam on 25th of December. I'm just giving a random date, guys. So next year, before 25th of December, you should renew your certification. Okay, just keep that in mind. If you miss out on the renewal, you will have to again give the exam, spend this much again, whereas renewal is absolutely free. Okay, there is no cost at all for renewing the certification. So please keep that in mind. Do not miss out on the renewal date and your, yeah. So if you want to know more about the exam, so just go to this exam guide and you will get all the information. What is the weightage of the skills that are there, etc. All that information you can see. So I'll share this link also in the chat. Yeah, so if you see here, for every skill, what is the percentage? So working with lake houses, warehouses, and semantic models is something that I have seen, like lake houses and warehouses. From that module, you get maximum questions. So if you see, the weightage is also maximum over there. Okay, so you will have to, you can come here and you can see what is the weightage and etc. All of that information you can see over here. What are the different modules mapped with every skill, that also you can see over here. Okay, so this is it, guys, regarding the DP-600 this thing. Okay, here you saw how you can work with Microsoft Fabric. We saw the very fundamentals of Fabric, why Fabric. Okay, and you can clearly see, like, if you see the workspace. So I'll show you my earlier workspaces that I have created when I was working on Fabric. So you can see that lots of things are possible, not just this. We saw a very simple demo, but a lot of things are possible. Okay, so here you can see, you can create machine learning models, you can create reports, and everything is in one place at a single location. I'm not using multiple services to, and multiple tabs are not open. Okay, so that I have to go and review everything in that specific workspace or in that specific service. Okay, everything here has come under one roof, has come under a single location. Okay, and even the data now has come under in one single location. So that is what is. So once you start using this particular service, I think you will become more comfortable with it. But if you're an individual using it, you will have to create a dummy domain and you will have to work with it. Okay, otherwise, or you can use, if you are a part of an enterprise, you can surely use your enterprise ID and use a trial capacity to work and practice the labs that I have shared with you all. Okay, So that is it, guys. So, guys, if you haven't given us your feedback, you haven't completed the course achievement badge, you are in process. I mean, haven't redeemed the course achievements. Please, guys, go ahead and do that. It is something that will be beneficial to you all. Okay, it will show that you, yes, you are skilled on it, and you can use, you can just share it on your social media platform. And of course, we would love to hear your feedback, guys. So please. We have still 5 minutes before we end the session. Please give us your feedback and all the best for the exam. If you have any queries, you can reach out to Synergetics. Archie has already shared the details. If you want to know more about the trainings, what kind of trainings we do, what kind of work we do, please you can visit our social media platforms. We are there on Instagram, LinkedIn, um, on Facebook as well, and on YouTube also. Please subscribe to our channel so that you can get uh, the recording of, I mean, you can review this recording. And also, guys, if you want to give exam the DP-600 or any Microsoft certification in the future, since we are Microsoft Gold partners, we get certain exam vouchers at a discounted rate. So if you want to know more about those vouchers and the discounts, please reach out to Archie. She has shared her email ID and her number. Okay, please reach out to her. She will help you and guide you regarding the certification or Microsoft certifications. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy the weekend. Wishing you all a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year in advance. And have a great day. Uh, any thoughts? Actually, DP-700 is still in the beta stages, and I think it revolves around data engineering. That is lake houses, and I don't know when they will launch it. I have absolutely no idea. Even I'm waiting for it as well. Even I want to give the exam on it. So I don't even think I don't think so. They have even launched any curriculum for it. Let me just check. I don't think so. They have launched any learn modules also. Any Yeah, so there's no material as of yet also available. So I have no idea when they will do it. Absolutely no idea. So yeah. So thank you everyone and have a great day, great weekend. See you all.
Guys, don't forget to fill this feedback form before leaving the session.